Well, hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Rousson again with another science lesson, and hope that we can learn a lot of science today and we can have a good time as we do it. Today's learning target is I can explain, okay, the process of photosynthesis, and we've already talked about that word in the past lesson, okay? The process of photosynthesis, but we're going to add something to that learning target today, and that's the important part today. And I can explain the relationship between producers and consumers. Okay, so I want to go over it one more time. So I can explain the process of photosynthesis, which we've already done a little bit about that. Actually, we've done a lot with that. And I can explain the relationship between producers and consumers. Those two words are super important today. Producers and consumers. Okay? I'm going to underline those. I'm also going to underline photosynthesis. And you know that a target, right? A target, if we are using a bow and arrow, a target is something that we want to hit right in the middle. So when we finish this lesson today, we want to make sure that we are able to explain photosynthesis. And if anybody, a little brother or mom or dad or anybody comes to ask us, we can tell them what a producer is, what a consumer is, and what is their relationship. Okay? Got it? Oh, what's my mom doing over there? Mom, what are you doing?
Estoy comiendo la luz del sol.
In English, Mom, please.
Oh, I am eating sunlight.
You're eating sunlight?
Yes.
Oh, come on. I think she's trying to teach me a lesson. I think she's trying to teach me a lesson because I was talking to her about the lesson that I was going to teach you. And I think she is just saying that she's eating sunlight. How could you possibly eat sunlight? How could you do that? The plate was empty. How could she be eating sunlight? I think she definitely is trying to teach me a lesson. But anyways, I have a little assignment from you. I'd like you to go to your Google Doc or to a science notebook or a science binder, whatever it is that you're using. And I want you to actually talk about that. I want you to write about that. I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to do that, okay? This is what I want you to write about. How can we, humans or other animals, actually eat sunlight? And I'll tell you, all energy comes from the sun. So all living things that need the energy that comes from the sun. So my mom obviously was not eating sunlight. She was just trying to be funny, you know? So how can you and me and other animals, how can we eat, in quotation marks, how can we get the sunlight or the energy that we need from the sun, okay? You can put the video on pause and take about 5-6 minutes to answer that question, okay? All right. I'm sure that you wrote some wonderful things in your science notebook or binder or in your Google Docs, okay? I think I have an idea that some of you or a lot of you probably wrote that the way that we get the energy from the sun is by eating. I'm pretty sure that's what many of you wrote. Now, maybe some of you might have written that we get sunlight by just going out, but that's not really getting the energy from the sun. You know, that creates vitamin D and all of those things, but we're not going to get into that. But how do we really get the energy from the sun that we need? We get it by eating. We get it by eating. That's just really the only way that we get energy, by eating. Now, last lesson, we talked about, what was that process? Do you remember? The process that we talked about, do you remember? Starts with a P, but it has an F sound. Do you remember that process? You can look back, Actually, give you a little clue. It's in the learning target. Yes, the process of photosynthesis. What is the process of photosynthesis? 30 seconds. You can look in your brains. You can look back in your notes from last time. What is the process of photosynthesis? I'm going to wait about 30 seconds. Okay. Exactly. It is the process in which plants make their own food that we call either sugar or glucose. Okay? So it is the process in which a plant, could be a flower or a tree that has mangoes. It is the process in which plants make their food. Now, what are the ingredients that are needed for photosynthesis? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Look in your brains or look in your notebooks. What are the ingredients that are needed for photosynthesis? Okay, look back in your notes. Okay, so the ingredients that are needed, ingredients for photosynthesis are sunlight. What's the other one? Water. You got it. Number 3, what's the other ingredient? Carbon dioxide. And finally, yes, chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, is it with an H or with an I? Oh, I can't remember. I'm going to leave a little blank over here. And then I'm going to find out if it's an I or a Y. Chlorophyll. But you guys have it there in your notes, so you're able to find it very quickly. So, we know that plants make their food through that process. And remember, we're trying to explain photosynthesis? So that is the process. Those are the ingredients that are needed for plants to grab the sunlight and make it into food. It's very easy for them. It's very, very easy, right? Now, we have to go to that second part, okay? And what I want you to do is, I want you to go to your Google Docs or your science notebooks or binders, okay? I want you to go to that, and I'm going to need you to do some work on your own. And I'm going to put another, put it this way. Put it this way, yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm covering my nice little C here because I want to pretend that I am at the beach because I love the beach. So I want to go to the second part of that lesson, producers and consumers. And what I want you to do is, I want you to make a T-chart like this, okay? If you are using a Google Doc, you can insert a table that has 2 columns, okay? And you can do it that way, or you can just draw the T-chart. And I want you to write producer here, producers, and I want you to write consumers here, okay? And then in parentheses, put plants, and over here, put animals. And when I say animals, I'm also including humans here, okay? All right, animals and humans. So what I want you to do is take about, I say maybe 5-6 minutes. If you have anybody at the house that you can discuss it with, like a little brother or a little sister, or a mom, dad, grandpa, uncle, you know, anybody. Or if you're by yourself, you can then start writing, why do we call plants? This is a question that I want you to answer. Why do we call plants producers? And then give a little explanation here, okay? And why do we call plants consumers? And why do we call animals and humans consumers? So think about that. Why do we call plants producers? And why do we call animals and humans consumers? Okay? I'm going to give you about 5 to 6 minutes to answer the question. You can pause the video and then think about that and answer, you know? Just not a guess, but an educated guess from your information that you have. Try your very best to do that, okay? So pause your video and start working. All right. So I'm sure you have great answers. I'm sure you have awesome answers. Why do we call plants producers? Because they produce or make their own food. They produce their food. They make it. We cook it. They make it. You know, we cannot go to the kitchen and just put a bunch of stuff together and come up with a potato. We just grab the potato that the plants produced and we cook it. We cannot just go to the kitchen and just create a mango. Plants do. We cannot create a peach. Plants do. Or an avocado or a grapefruit, right? And why are animals called consumers? I'm sure many of you wrote the same thing, because they consume or use up what plants or producers make. So we are lucky. We don't have to go through that whole thing of making food. We can just grab it from the plants. Look, I have a full tray full of fruit there. And if I go to my fridge, I have a bunch of food over there too that I didn't make, that my dad didn't make, that my wife didn't make, that my mom didn't make. We just cooked it. We cooked it. It was already made by the plants. Isn't that awesome? We have a nice relationship with the plants. We need those plants, right? So producers produce their food, consumers consume their food. Let me look over here in my notes to make sure that I am covering everything that I need to cover, because just like you, I have my target. If you're gonna hit your target, I have to hit my target, right? So, the next thing that I want to look at, since we already have the chart, right? There are different types of consumers. There are different types of consumers, and we have to know those today. I'm going to give you some clues, and then you're going to work on your own, or if you have anybody at the house that you can work with, you can do that. Or if you are in the classroom, you can work with other students in the classroom. But you're going to be working in either your Google Docs or your science notebooks or binders. But let me give you some clues. So there are different kinds of consumers. The first kind are herbivores. Second kind, carnivores. Third, omnivores. And then decomposers. Okay? Many of our words in English come from old languages like the Greek or the Latin. So, in this case, they come from the Latin. And vor means one who eats. Okay? One who eats. So, vor, one who eats. And then herb, if you know Spanish, you know hierba. That means grass or herb. If you take herbs to put in different foods, like basil to put in your pasta sauce, or cumin to put in your Mexican dishes, okay, herbs. So herbivores, okay? I'm giving you some clues because then you're gonna go and you're gonna define each one of those words on your own, okay? The second one, carne, if you know Spanish, you know carne means meat or flesh, and vor means one who eats, okay? So carne is that Latin root that means flesh or meat, okay? And then omni means all, okay? Omni. And I'm not going to talk much about decomposers because that's going to be your homework. So now what you need to do is go to your notebooks or binders, or go to your Google Docs and go ahead and have a definition for each one of these words: herbivore, carnivore, and omnivores. You can pause the video and you can actually write from here and then write a definition on your own, what you think those words mean. What kind of consumers are these? Okay, because they are in a subcategory. Okay, go ahead and pause your video. All right, so I mean, that was super easy to do, I think, if you would listen carefully to my clues. So herbivores are consumers that eat vegetables. Herby, grass, vegetables. Carnivores are consumers that eat meat. And omnivores are consumers that eat both. They eat all. They eat meat and they eat vegetables. And then decomposers, I'm going to give you an article. So there's an article that your teacher is going to give you, and you can read there and you can find your information. What is a decomposer? Okay? So that is the lesson for today. Let's go over our learning target. I can explain the process of photosynthesis, which if you still cannot do it, you can go back to your notes and you can figure it out. And we can explain the relationship between producers and consumers. So we know the different types of consumers, and we can explain the relationship between producers and consumers. So thank you so much. I hope you had a great time. I did, and I will see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.